25 years ago on this weekend, me and a few people in here stood over at Crestdale Middle School and Team Church was born. I have seen a few people who are here on that first Sunday in 1999. Neil and Joy McGlowan are here with us, and he was very instrumental in getting the church started and was the first person on our leadership team. And so let's give Neil and Joy a hand for being here today. Neil, your hair looks a little grayer than it did 25 years ago. I got a few little glistenings. So on October 8th, we celebrated the past. If you were here for our big celebration, our big 25-year celebration, we came here and had a great time, and we really talked about, and we just broke everything down. We packed out the house, had food. We talked about and celebrated the past. Today, we are now going to challenge ourselves to move forward with the same type of tenacity, the same type of vigor and passion and faith that first inspired the dream that is Team Church, that opened up in January of 1999. I was thinking about 25 years, and the reality is after doing the same thing for 25 years, and if you look at a lot of different ministries and pastors, you can get a little tired. You can get a little frustrated. And the reality is sometimes the focus, the why, gets a little bit blurred. I was kind of reflecting on this over the last couple of months. And in the reality, I've invested my whole adult life right here, the last 25 years at Team Church. And I was thinking through this. And while that was in my mind, we were in Christmas back in Dallas, and I was in North Dallas, and I went to a Barnes & Noble. I've been going there forever during Christmas break. We're there back with Kelly's parents. And so I was there, and I was in the Barnes & Noble, and I went to the Christian section. I was just looking at different books. We got a new series coming up, a family series, and I was just kind of looking. As I was looking, I began to overhear a family talking over here, and they were a very typical-looking North Dallas family. Mom, dad, high schooler, daughter, middle school son, a little bit younger daughter, and they were all there. And while I was sitting here, I was over listening, and they were looking for a Bible. And as the story went on, as I was hearing it, evidently they did not go to church. They knew nothing about God, knew nothing about the Bible, but the daughter was an athlete, and at her high school fellowship of Christian athletes, she had become a Christian, and they had encouraged her, you need to go get a Bible, and even gave her a Barnes & Noble gift certificate to go get a Bible. So now they're here, and they're looking. Well, I'm not at a Christian bookstore. I'm at a Barnes & Noble, and so there's a lot of different Bibles that are there, and even in the Christian Bibles that we would use, there's a lot of different versions and all that kind of stuff. I was overhearing what they were saying. Someone walked up to them, and they were just open. They're saying, hey, we need a Bible for our daughter. She's a sophomore in high school, and she's never really read the Bible before. What do you suggest? And so I listened real close, and just to tell you, the information and what they told her was totally wrong. And I thought, I'm on break. I ain't here to pastor anybody. Do I need to jump in here? Holy Spirit's like, you're an idiot. Yeah, so she left, the one who gave bad information. I went over there, kind of freakish, and I said, hey, I heard your conversation. If I could suggest something, I was the youth pastor for many years. I'm a pastor now. Here's the Bible I would get for a high school kid. This is what we always give to our high school kids, and I picked it out, and it was an NLT, it was a student Bible, and I did all of that, and all of a sudden, they just began to tell me their whole life story. Once again, I'm like, well, here I am, pastoring in Barnes & Noble. Over the next 25 to 30 minutes, the Lord revealed to me again why we have this church, and of course other churches. We're talking about our church. Here is a typical looking North Dallas family, lived there, raised there. That's kind of the buckle of the Bible Belt. It's Texas. They had no clue about God. They had no clue about the Bible. They had no clue about how to read the Bible, what Bible to get. Their daughter, thank God, had gone to a fellowship of Christian athletes, been invited. And so now I'm presenting them with the gospel. I'm presenting them with why they should read this Bible and how that'd be a good one. And Dad, you should get this. And he was excited that the Bible I picked was a lot cheaper than the one that the other lady had told him to get. So he was in with that. But all of a sudden we began to see, this is why church. This is why we have a Vision 2024. This is why, because there are still so many people, especially now in America, even in the Bible Belt, here in what we'd call the South, who are completely clueless about Christ, about the Bible. I was shocked, and as they left, as I walked away, through the power of the Holy Spirit, it just hit me. And the Lord said, you're not done. Team Church is not done. We got a lot of work to do. So what is our vision for 2024? The next chapter, the next 25 years. As we're looking at it, it should be the same as we do at the beginning of the year as just everyday people. I love the life concept put forth by Dan Sullivan in his book, The Gap and the Gain. And he talks about as you're pressing forward, as you're setting goals, as you're trying to be achieving, he comes up with his solution. His moniker is aim forward, measure backward. So as we're talking about 2024, we're going to aim forward, measure backward. Aim forward. So what are you going for? What's the goal? What's the dream? What looks like perfection? You aim towards that, but you measure, and this is where he comes up with his concept, and I really liked it. You measure backward. So I want to break that down for us. You see, perfection sets the direction. When you begin to think about, maybe you've got a weight loss goal, maybe you've got some type of academic goal, you've got some kind of job goal, whatever it is. But for us as a church, our one purpose, you set the direction is set by this idea of absolute perfection. That's the ideal, and now everything set is the direction. I now know where to go. I now know what I'm going to work for. But perfection is not the measuring stick. Perfection is not the ultimate goal that you have to get that specific picture of what you're dreaming about. It cannot be, as we move forward, it can't be the perfect scenario or bust. I have to look like that, where everything I've done the last year in my physical fitness was completely worthless. It leads to what? Frustration. Sullivan talks about this. We understand that. When you set a perfection, and as you're moving towards it, that's the only thing that brings you joy, it leads to frustration. It leads to anxiety. It leads to depression, and you can't enjoy the successful steps. And so then what happens when you can't grasp what you had in your mind as perfection, then pretty soon you quit. You just move back. You stop going to the gym. You stop working towards those goals, whatever it may be. So you have perfection, and it sets the direction. But it can't be the end-all, be-all of what you have to enjoy or discover at this every step. Many of you know the NFL playoffs started this weekend. Yesterday, the Browns, the Dolphins lost. If these NFL teams, which a lot of them, they have the coach speak, our only goal is to win the Super Bowl. It's not really true. Because here's the reality. If that's the only goal you have, if that perfection, only one team wins the Super Bowl or championship, whatever sport you're in, only one team. Is everybody else a colossal failure? Is everybody else not moving towards what is the perfection direction? No. We have a goal, we have perfection, but it sets the direction. The Dolphins and the Browns did not win that game, but they'd be fools. And this is why a lot of coaches and pastors and maybe executives and husbands and wives, why they step away, why they quit, because the perfection wasn't immediately attainable. It wasn't right there. And so instead of seeing it as a continual direction, they pull back. So we have to aim forward. Perfection, you put it in your mind. What is that? And then measure backwards. What is measuring backwards? The idea is this: progress sets the possibility. You look backwards and you see what you've accomplished. You see where you have moved. Progress made empowers progress possible. What does this do? This inspires you every day. As you're in the direction for perfection, you stay motivated. When it doesn't go just the way you thought it was going to go, you still stay inspired because you understand the direction is just as valuable, if not more valuable, than the perceived perfection that you're looking for. You're able to see where you've come from. Again, new year, a lot of people want to lose weight. A lot of times people get really motivated. They'll get a picture of what they want to look like, and they'll cut it out and put it on their mirror at the bathroom. You start to work out. You're watching your carbs. You're doing this. You're doing that. 2 or 3 months into it, you're like, you don't look like that. You haven't achieved perfection. You haven't achieved what you thought was going to be perfect. A lot of times, that's when people are like, I'm out. Where's the donut? I'm done. But if you measure backward, then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Over the last couple of months, I've dropped X amount of pounds. My waist is a little smaller. There's things happening I'm more healthy. There are benefits of measuring backwards instead of always measuring forward. If I measure forward of what hasn't happened, I get disgruntled. I get a sense of lack of motivation, could be depressed again. The benefits of measuring backwards is a sense of accomplishment every day. A sense of accomplishment. You gain a real sense of accomplishment that keeps you positive and appreciating your actual achievements and improvements rather than always upset and striving for what the perfection is. I got to keep moving, got to keep grinding. You can have a sense of accomplishment. It's a new way of viewing your past. You acquire the ability to look at your past achievements through a new lens and appreciate the real progress you've made and the goals you've achieved along the way. And you can make some changes. You can call an audible if you look back to the immediate past. You're like, this went well, this didn't go well. Well, now I can make some changes on the direction towards my perfection. When I look back, when I measure backwards, it gives me a new way of looking at the past. It also just increases my confidence. The renewed confidence from knowing that you made progress in the past has you staying positive and optimistic that you can do again in the future and achieve even bigger goals. I call it the can-do attitude. Instead of looking what you still want to do, instead of looking what, you're like, look what I've already achieved. And if I did this, well then guess what? It empowers the possibility. It gives me this sense of progress of the possibility. I've already done this. Well, I can do this. Not sure about that, but I know I can do this, but I still have the perfection as my direction. Do you see how that works? Aim forward, measure backward. When we don't do this, this is when most people quit. They get frustrated. There's no immediate results. They lose confidence. And we have raised a whole generation that has no clue about delayed gratification. I set the perfection goal. This is what I got to achieve. And it didn't happen right now. Well, I'm out. There's very few things in life that actually work that way. You delay your gratification. You measure backwards. You see what you've done. It keeps you motivated. You make some tweaks. And you keep moving forward. Look at Psalm 77, verse 11 through 14. Now we're going to make sure, because everything I just said could be a TED Talk. Let's make sure that we understand the truth of TED Talks, all truths, God's truths. Now, how does that tie into Vision 2024, your Christian life, my Christian life? Psalm 77. I will remember the Lord's work. Yes, I will remember your ancient wonders. Watch this. I will reflect on all you have done and meditate on your actions. I'm going to measure backwards, meditating on it. God, your way is holy. What God is great like God? You are the God who works wonders. You revealed your strength among the people. When we measure backwards as Christians, We say, I've been following the Lord, I've been praying, I've had this direction, but it's just not me. It's the Lord. And He is measuring my steps. He is guiding me. So when I look back, I don't look back at what I've done or what have I. Lord, look what you have done. Look where you have brought me. So then my confidence isn't in the flesh. It isn't in what I can do. My confidence is in God. My confidence is what God's already done. Shared this a couple weeks ago. It's a great phrase. God, I don't know what you're doing, but I know what you've done. God, I don't know if I'll ever achieve that perfection, but I know what you've done, so I'm going to measure backwards. My trust is in you, my faith is in you, and with you, I'll continue to move forward. As a Christian, we can take this concept, aim forward, measure backwards. We infuse it with the biblical truth of, my steps are known by the Lord. My steps are measured, as the psalmist says, by the Lord. My confidence is in the Lord, and I can see what He has done. So where are we, as a church, aiming in 2024? What are our can-do goals in 2024? What's the can-do goal? The can-do goal isn't, well, I'm going to, that's going to go perfect, and this is going to happen, and we're going to set this kind of measurement, we're going to baptize this many people. Those are just perfections. Those are things you're aiming for, which you need to do, but the can-do. The can-do is measured backward. I can do it because God's already doing it. God's already involved in it, and I can literally see what He has done. So what is our perfection direction? Hebrews chapter 12. Therefore, since we also have such a large cloud of witnesses, this is the author of Hebrews writing to the Christians, in a time of persecution, time where they're kind of going this way but wondering what's happening here. Therefore, since we have such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, measuring backwards, let us lay aside every hindrance and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, the direction I'm aiming forward. And here it is. Keeping our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer, the author, and the perfecter of our faith. What perfection are we aiming for? Jesus. Sounds like a Sunday school answer. It's a good Sunday school answer. But that is the perfection that we're aiming for. That's the picture. How did Jesus live His life? What did Jesus say? Keeping our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, for the joy that lay before Him, He endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider Him who endured such hostility from sinners against Himself, so that you won't grow weary and give up. In struggling against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. This is a very famous passage. Don't have time to read all of it. But this is the passage where it goes on to say, so don't run from the Lord's discipline. The Lord disciplines the one He loves and the ones who belong to Him. That's those passages. And many times we use this for like parenting, when there's an aspect of discipline there, of you've done something wrong and discipline. But you should know that the word here, and in the context, has just as much the idea of instruction, training, teaching. Push pause. As we're aiming for perfection, as we're measuring backwards, we're sometimes going to measure backwards and see that life is tough, that it's difficult. God is with us, and he's allowing, this word here, God allows difficulty in our life, allows persecution, that's what they're talking about here, allows challenging times to our faith. This won't sell a lot of books. To train us, to teach us, to discipline. Again, we think of discipline, you broke that, I'm going to discipline you. That's not this word totality. It's an idea of, I'm going to discipline my body by working out. It's more of that, training. So the author of Hebrews is saying here, we're going to keep our eyes on Jesus, and we're moving towards that perfection. And oh, by the way, sometimes you're going to get killed. And oh, by the way, sometimes it's going to be really hard. And oh, by the way, sometimes it's not going to go the way you thought it was going to go. And God is allowing that. You hate it. It makes you angry. It makes you mad. It makes you question him. It makes you wonder, And the author of Hebrews says, God's allowing that to happen because you're his kid. And he's using it to train you, to teach you, to instruct you. That's the meaning of those verses. A little different than I did something wrong, I got disciplined. I measure backwards. And sometimes it's inspirational, sometimes it's amazing. And then sometimes, that's what he says here, you haven't stood for Jesus in the point where it's cost you your blood. So keep moving. Keep trusting. Keep following forward. Psalm 37:23. The steps of a man are established by the Lord, when he delights in his way. What does that mean? To delight in the Lord's way isn't to like, oh, that's awesome. It's to commit your life, your way, to his way. Now it's starting to come together, see? God, you're measuring my steps. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I got a direction. I'm aiming for perfection. I've measured backwards, and along the way, I see that it's difficult, but I'm trusting you that you're allowing these things to happen to make me better, to train me. And this is the training of godliness. This is a training of discipleship. So, our perfection as people and church, as we think about 2024, I'm not sure what you were expecting, but we're going to keep it real simple. It's to be like Jesus. It's to know Jesus. It's to live for Jesus. That is the direction. That is the perfection. That is the can-do goals. Why can you do it? Because you've already seen it happen. You're measuring backwards, which inspires you that even if you're new, a Christian, you're new in the faith, you can grow in your faith. You won't be perfect. You're going to stumble and bumble along the way, but you're heading for the author, the pioneer of perfection. You're moving towards that because you're measuring backwards. Team Church can-do goals in 2024. Love like Jesus. It's a big goal. Love like Jesus. Reach people where they are. That's our one purpose, right? For 25 years, that's our one purpose. Reach people where they are. We're going to love like Jesus. That means we're going to go to people. And it's going to blow some of you away, but we're going to encourage you to engage in our community, engage with people who are far from Christ, who have rejected Christ, who are running from Christ. And you're going to go there because you have a purpose. You have a sense of urgency. Christmas morning, I had done Christmas Eve here with you good people. There was no flights out like typical. So I shacked up with Kurt and Christine Wood and their family for Christmas Eve. My family's already in Dallas, 4:30 in the morning. Kurt takes me to the airport. Takes me to the airport. I get out, fist bump, you good, man? He's gonna go back to bed. I got a long journey to try to get to Dallas pretty quick for Christmas morning's festivities. And as he's getting out and pulling away, I'm pulling my bag, all that kind of stuff. You do the check, right? I got my wallet, got my bag. Oh, I don't have my phone. And there Kurt goes. And listen, you don't know your friend's numbers either. I had no clue what his phone number was. I had no clue. Doesn't matter, because I went in the airport and I went to this finally people. I said, hey, I need a phone. They're like, we don't have any phones. I was like, you don't have any phones? I don't have any phones. I said, well, I got a call. What's the number? I don't know the number. So then pretty soon I thought, well, I do need a donut. So I went and got a donut. And over the next 2 hours, God's given us all different personalities, but it was urgent. I just had to go up to people. Excuse me, I'm an idiot. My wife's expected me at the airport. I can't tell her anything. I don't have a phone. Can I use your phone at 5:30 in the morning on Christmas morning to text my wife in Dallas, who's still asleep? First person gave me the. Next person, when she called me baby doll, I knew I was in. She pulls out a phone. It was an antique. I was like, you're gonna have to do this. 704, blah, 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 blah. What do you want me to say? I forgot my phone in Kurt's car, and right now my flight is still on time. I'll make sure it's still on time later. Hour later, flight's still on time. I gotta go find somebody else. Before I got on, I had to make sure I was texting and keeping her up to date. So I had to go to 3 different people and use their phone and just literally go up to them and like, hey, can I use your phone to text my wife, text this, whatever it is. The last person was a pilot who didn't want to be there anymore, and I wanted to be there. He was jumping a flight to go somewhere else to fly somewhere else, and he had his phone, and we were getting ready to get on. I was like, hey, can I use your phone? Here, and it gave him the story. He looked at me like, you're an idiot, but sure, you can use my phone. What's my point? I had a sense of urgency. I absolutely had a sense of purpose. And so I was willing to go up to people in an awkward situation because I needed to send out information. That's how we're going to have to love like Jesus in our new American culture. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be different. There are people who don't know who God is. They don't know anything about the Bible. So our direction is to love like Jesus, go to people wherever, and the purpose of the gospel. We measure backwards as a church, and we see that not only the 25 years, but now we're just going to look over the last year, because you want to measure back in a recent sense. Our attendance is up. Baptism is highest in attendance since COVID. Our last baptism, if you were here, the stories were incredible. And the baptism stories were that way all year long. Over the last year, our home teams blossoming, growing, but more importantly, the testimonies. Missions is expanding. I remember I dropped off school supplies with some of our volunteers, the amount of teachers who came out, principals, administrators. They're like, this is incredible. Thank you. We need this. In today's culture, a lot of people aren't doing these kind of things before, and they kept going on and on and on. We were loving like Jesus. When I look back, measure backwards, our church is so loving, so growing in Christ. It has to continue and even get ramped up, because we all know people in the everyday life who we're just going to have to figure out a way to share our story, present the gospel, invite them and their kids to a sports thing, invite them and their kids to Pursuit or Teen Kid. Do something, because the time is urgent. Like, well, yeah, Kenny, you're an extrovert. I never would have. I think you probably would have, because there was no phone. I had to connect. I had to communicate. My guess is even the most timid little introvert in here would have done something besides sitting in the corner in the fetal position. You'd have done something. You had to communicate. My wife had no clue where I was coming in, what gate, nothing. It's Christmas morning. You'd have done it. We're going to love like Jesus. We're going to do a real practical thing. I want you this week to be thinking about one person this year that you're going to pray for, that you're going to connect with. Be ready for that next Sunday. We're going to do something cool with it. Got to love like Jesus, but also got to serve like Jesus. Reach people where they are. Lead them to full devotion in Jesus, because that's the perfecter of our faith. We measure backwards just the last year, a year and a half at Team Church. Incredible amount of changed lives. You need to get into home team, the amount of people reading through the Bible. Many people are like, I've been in home teams forever. We never actually, but I personally never sat and read through the Bible, so we've been doing that. And those who are living for Christ, taking the gospel to their schools, to their communities, to their jobs. But here's what we need to understand is to serve to lead people to full devotion, leading takes serving. So we got to serve like Jesus. We got to serve, and that's with a purpose, that's with a passion, and that's with an understanding. And so there are some who are sitting here today that you haven't found your area of serving. As we're seeing, there's an attack on the families. And so we need more people in kids ministry and student ministry, home team leaders. I mean, there's all places to serve, but if we're going to lead people into full devotion, we need more people serving, being a part of the discipleship process. Again, we have a crisis in the American family. And so as a church, you've kind of watched, we're staffing for this, ministries to combat it. 2 weeks from now, Seth Damon will start as our middle school and sports pastor. Why are we doing that? Well, AJ started it, Brad's taken it. We got hundreds of high school kids and middle school kids, and they need specific attention, specific ministries. It's a challenging ministry. Any of you who work with middle schoolers, you know it's challenging ministry. And so we are staffing around it. We're starting new ministries for it. And we need all of us to have the direction, the perfection of Christ, and to say, I'll use my God-given gifts and passions to serve so that we can lead people to full devotion in Christ. Your kids right now, up there with Mr. Clint, with all those volunteers, they're being led to full devotion. While you're sitting in here, there's volunteers doing that. That's going to enhance, and we need more in 2024. We're going to serve like Jesus, but also give like Jesus. How did Jesus give? Sacrificially. Best he could. Focus on what's important. As we measure backwards, just to the 2023, we not only met our budget, but our budget giving exceeded it, which is incredible, which enables us to hire staff, to do more ministries as we look at 2023 and go, look, we had the income was coming in. Ministries were supported. We can afford these things. We can grow. Direction by measuring backwards. Of course, we were all challenged to pray and make a pledge of sacrificing for the gospel, for this nexus, and I was moved. Like very few times I have been in 25 years. As I went to all the different home teams, and I was sharing and talking and sharing and talking. And then people on their own came back to me, because I said, if you got any stories expressing what's happening, I was moved by the stories of people who understand my serving, my loving, my giving of my resources is all not only moving me like Jesus, but it's a part of the gospel. It's a part of what's happening. And we spent a long time, we spent a long time from October 8th. We spent a long time because it was a spiritual journey. And so many people, singles, couples, I was telling our staff, our younger generation are kind of like 22 to 32, even in their 20s, young married, some singles, who really prayed, who really said, you know what, over the next 2 years, I don't have a lot of, right now give money, but I can pledge, and to pledge means I can sacrifice here and not do that. And the spiritual journeys that people went on and that people were telling me how they and their husband and wife came together and they prayed through it and looked and projected for 25 months and said, we probably don't have to do that. We can tighten up here and be able to. See, that's a spiritual thing. We never told anybody what they had to give. Just pray. And we measure backwards over the last couple of months. Incredible. The amount of older, retired people who were here who told me they were giving sacrificially from their retirement because they believed in what 25 years has done and the next 25 years. Remember, Nexus isn't about what's happening right now, it's like we got to set the tone spiritually. And I said this in the very first Sunday we talked about it, is we just need to make sure that those of us who call Teen Church, that we have the ability to read and pray and then realign our life through loving, serving, and giving to be more like Jesus, to take the gospel at any cost, to be willing to sacrifice. And so many of you did that. Incredible, the stories. And that was the main goal, that we would have so many more people dive into the depths of understanding of what does it mean to really fashion my life through the way I love, through the way I use my gifts and I serve, and the way that I give, that I would reorient my life. That's a term that I used on the first Sunday of January 17th, 1999 at Crestdale Middle School. I said, we want to start a church. I can show you my notes. We want to start a church that no matter where we come from, that we would reorient our life around the claims of Jesus Christ. I said that on this weekend, 25 years ago at Crestdale Middle School. Nothing has changed with the direction, with the purpose, but it's absolutely our culture, our country, our morality, our lostness. What do I mean by lostness? People maybe sitting here, people that you know, who really don't know what the Bible says, who like that family. I gave them a quick tutorial, Old Testament, New Testament. This is the words of Jesus in red. And for some of us, that's crazy. Because we grew up in church, or you've been coming here, and you've grown in our church. But there's so many more people. So this is why we give. And so this next part is I share with you the incredible great news of our Nexus giving. It has nothing to do specifically about next week. It's about the trajectory. It's about the direction of where God is taking us. So our Nexus year-end gift, the amount that was given, cash money, it's in the bank right now. It's incredible because you know that we said the first portion of that was going to continue to do our Go Missions. So you gave $231,609. It's in the bank right now. That's incredible. Incredible. So what does that do? That means our church planters, AJ, who was leading worship, when he and Liberty leave to go plant their church in St. Petersburg, we have the funds to give them full medical, full dental, and a salary. It means that our Cyprus that Neil's ahead of, our Cyprus project, all of our mission partners around the globe, public schools, local, international, that means right now it's in the bank. We're taking care of missions first. It's in the bank, fully supported. What does that also mean? It means, I told you the most dire thing we needed right here was the flushing of the toilets. It means with that money given, we now are moving fast, design, permitting, all that kind of stuff. It's a race to the sewers. This area is growing, and it is a sewer race because you can get capacity, and so we got to go fast. And so we had the money sitting in the bank. We're now getting the contractors, the designers, talking with the city, and we now, over the next, it's about a 6 or 7, 8 month project probably, we now are going to go from a septic tank to a sewer. Doesn't seem like a lot of big deal, right? It's a big deal because the new building in the next 25 years can't happen unless we got a place for the poo-poos to go. Pretty practical, right? So you gave, boom. And listen, putting a sewer in isn't like, $10. Hell, a lot of money. So we have the money to be able to do that right now. And so then also we talked about pledging. What was the pledging for? The pledging was a 2-year journey. Okay? If someone wanted to come in, and if anybody still wants to do this, in the history of our church, we've never had, what do they call it? Not fat daddy, big daddy, sugar daddy. We've never had a sugar daddy come in and go, you need $1 million? Here it is. If you want to be my sugar daddy, you come see me. We need a sugar daddy. But for the most part, for us, it's about planning and budgeting and striving, right? So that's the pledging over 25 months. Why 25 months? Because church has turned 25 years. Over the next 25 months, over and above ministry and budgeting and missions, because that doesn't stop, can we sacrificially begin to squirrel away money over here and move in a pledging so that we can go to the next phase of our building? So you pledge. This is incredible. You pledge over the next 25 months, $1,033,941. That's incredible. That's incredible. Which means our total nexus, cash and prizes, everything that was given in cash and in pledge is 1,266,000. I've practiced all morning. 1,266,550. That's incredible. Give yourselves and God a hand. That's incredible. We have started this 2-year journey. The Promise Pledges enables us to continue the plans and move forward. With the great giving and pledge amounts, we can stay on track as money comes in this year to be able to begin building sometime in the next 2 years. Remember, I told you, if you want to be my sugar daddy, if a sugar daddy came in and was like, here's $4 million, nothing would happen till next October anyway. Permitting and all that kind of stuff. This is a 2-year process. This is delayed gratification, right? Begin building sometime, next 2 years. Timeline can change with more giving, lower interest rates, adjusted building plans. Not sure. This great pledging amount gives us options as 2024 moves forward and comes to an end. But for now, we keep doing ministry. We keep advancing the gospel. We absolutely have to give our pledges. Remember, banks don't give and build, and contractors don't come because we have a pledge card. So you got to give, we got to give, and then we're going to see where God leads. We measure backwards the recent, and we go, wow, that's a lot of pledging. That's incredible. The direction doesn't change, and now we're going to continue, and every 3 or 4 months, we're going to measure backwards. 3 or 4 months, we're going to measure backwards and continue towards perfection. But perfection isn't the goal. Perfection can't be what you expect in 6 months in any area of life. Where I talked about all of that. Delayed gratification is the key because so many of us, so many of you are delaying different things over the next 25 months so that you can give. That's giving like Jesus. The perfect ministry tool, our building, that's our direction. We're aiming forward. What God has done the last 25 years and through you in Nexus right now is measuring backwards. And now we are confident that God's not done with this place. The amount of new people and young singles and couples, I was telling our staff, telling Clint this morning, we're getting older. Some of you are getting a lot older. So the fact that we have this whole new crop. I went to one home team, and I told them, they were all in their early to mid-20s. And one of them had a kid that, I was like, this was us planting the church 25 years ago, and the kid that was only kid in there was Peyton, and it was a bunch of 20-year-olds. That's who started this church. That's who funded this church. Crazy. So that is where we're going in 2024. It hasn't changed. It's love, serve, give, so that we can share the gospel with the world, with our community, which is sinking in sin real fast, and lives are spiraling out of control. I'm at times, so I want to make sure you know this. Next week, we start an incredible series, God's design for the family. God's design for the family. I want you to look at the different titles of what's coming up. And we're going to talk family. We're going to talk God's design. And we're going to talk very specifically about what's really challenging so many families and people in our generation and our culture, this is a must. And now we know we can do it because we measure backwards, we aim forward. And you know people in your life who's, as a single person, an older person, a grandparent, doesn't matter. This is going to touch everybody. We're all in families. And they're probably spiraling out of control because maybe they bought into a lie, they bought into our culture, and what they need to know is Jesus. So the vision for 2024, love like Jesus, serve like Jesus, give like Jesus. The Nexus whole deal props us up, enables us to be able to incredibly move in the direction to what we want for that ministry tool building. We said this was a 2-year process, friends. Welcome to 2024. The journey towards perfection in Christ starts right now. God, we thank you. We love you. We got to go. So we ask you in your name. Amen.